Yo, what's going on, guys? So what I'm going to be doing today is just going over the weekly price action, how I frame trades, how you can frame trades, and just how I overall frame profiles and how I get directional bias, right? So what I want you guys to first focus on is what we did on Friday, right? So on Friday we expand higher. Now that we reach a significant bias objective, we reach into these failure swings right here, where we basically have these low resistance highs. Now the significant objective is obviously above that, right? Because it doesn't make sense to basically reverse of these highs when we have a relevant swing above it. So what we see on Monday is basically we open, and since we already expanded on Friday, we didn't have enough fuel, so to say, because we already expanded all day. So basically Monday finishes that job and takes out this high. Now the narrative can look something like this, where if we go to the 4 hour, we basically hit this key high, right, at the open. But I still see this is kind of like an open low first, where we basically just kind of like we gap into this high, but we still open low. So we're making a series of opposing candles, right? Just leaving low resistance highs on the sessions highs, which I'm going to show you. Now I want to specifically look how we form the open. So if you compare HO to RB, it is obviously more significant right here, and the most significant is CL, right, where we have this big gapping higher right here. So what we see is that we basically gap higher, we take out this high, and then we're coming back inside the range. Now what I want you guys to focus on is relevant key swings or significant levels we want to actually continue off. So if you look on HO, what's the only relevant swing to actually reverse off? It's this swing, right? There's nothing really relevant lower here. It's too far away. It wouldn't make sense, right? Because if we hit this low and then we expand away from that, that is obviously a signature that we're going to continue. Because if we fail to reverse off this high, what's the next target? It's obviously going to be this high. So it's almost like a range, right? Where this is the range. We can look at this as like range low and range high, right? Now what do we do in RB? We actually take out that range low and make an SMT on that, right? So that is a significant something I'm looking at. I'm just reading price, right? So what do we do? 6 a.m. hits that key level, right? Why do we need to wait for a new open? That's because we want to be positioned within a bullish 4-hour expansion candle. Now the whole profile trade is 4-hour profile. So when 6 a.m. expands into this key level, we don't want to be positioned within the 6 a.m. candle, for the simple reason that there's not enough time for this candle to expand higher because it's a bearish expansion candle. So we wait for the next open, which is the 10 a.m. 10 a.m. open low first, making that open low high close with SMT, right? So this is generally speaking where you can expect 10 a.m. to be low of day, right? And like when we look at profiles, this is not a day I would personally trade because of the simple reason that there's so, like, you see how we open high into this high, we're basically just kind of like expanding in Asia, in London. There's not enough fuel within this candle to actually expand into this high. But that's generally speaking where the next day can finish the job. So what we see right here is that we're forming some sort of protected swing, right? So we're forming a candle 1, 2, so 10 a.m. is the reversal with SMT, 11 a.m. expands away from that, right? Now, what do we see right here? We're forming a order block right here. So when the next day opens, we can see we open right here. We basically just open low first into this order block. Now, since this is a significant level where we want to see price react off, it's like, what other levels is there here? Like, we already have an established low here. Now, can we know for certain that this is low of the week? No, but we can know for certain that the next day should expand away from this low. So what we see is we open. Now, we open low. We expand into these highs. So we take out Asia session highs, right? And what we're doing after this is we're coming back down inside the range. Now, is this a reversal signature? No, because we're actually retracing. A retracement is a continuation signature. And why do we want to continue? Because there's a relevant swing right above this high. So that's what we want to focus on. Now, can you frame a profile within here? Yes, of course you can. You can frame profiles every single day. But I'm not going to focus too much internal to this price action. I just want to go over the overall profiles you can frame on. But it makes sense, right? We expand into a high. It's not a relevant high. Then we retrace, right? We form a sort of protected swing here. So first we form this protected swing right here. We form another protected swing. So this is just like showing us that we have an overall bullish narrative to go higher, right? So what we see right here is we expand higher. Now what's the high we want to target? We obviously want to target this high, which we do hit eventually, right? And when we hit this high, what are we getting? Signature in price. Are we gonna? This is a relevant. This is the current high of week. So if we want to see a reversal, this is where it's gonna happen. If we don't reverse this high, it's obviously that then we can expect this to be low of week. Because if we can't reverse this high, we're gonna continue. That just makes logical sense. So we see is that we hit this high, we retrace, and then we expand higher again, showing us that continuation signature. So we can mark this out as a failure to reverse. So when we go to, for example, RB, now we see that this is the exact same high. Now the problem is we haven't hit this high yet because this is this day. So we see that HO basically hit this high, we failed to reverse. So then what can we expect RB to go towards? We can obviously expect RB to target these highs. So that's where we can basically look at RB to actually trade this instead of HO, because now HO doesn't have a real target, right? We already took out a significant buy sell liquidity. We have this current it's like a current week, like the current week high, right? So that's when, generally speaking, we want to see like, okay, can we get some sort of like strength switching intraday? Is there a better profile, right? You can still trade the HO obviously because they move with each other. So it makes logical sense to still trade the HO if you want to, right? It's not like wrong to do that. So what we see on the open right here is we have an overall target, right? Like I said, we failed to reverse here. We're doing the exact same thing on RB. What are we doing? We open at 6 p.m. right here, so it's the opening price. We basically just consolidate. So this is not something significant. I still see this as a open low. We basically open low first because we don't hit anything significant. We already have this high as a key level to target, right? So when we don't hit anything relevant, this is generally speaking where I can expect this to be the open low, right? Making that daily wick. Now we want that daily wick to form within a key level, right? Now we can see right here that from yesterday, we can see, I didn't mention this, but we basically mitigate this fair value gap right here. So this is generally speaking where I don't want price to come back to this, right? We already mitigated a gap. We don't need to come back. Can we come back? Yeah, obviously, because price can do anything, right? But usually, generally speaking, we want to look for price action within this. So what I see is that we have the 14 candle, which would be the New York PM session low. So what we see is that we take out this New York session low, or New York PM session low, right? And this is like a relevant level to reverse from. So this is where you can just look at the profile, right? Like you can see that we're forming a sort of 2 a.m. expansion into this low, and we're forming sort of reversal candle where we're coming back into the previous 4-hour candle range. So this is generally speaking when we have that upside bias that 6 a.m. can just expand away from this, because this is where we expect the daily wick to have formed at this relevant level, right? Now we can mark out the 6 a.m. candle. Now I'm gonna go through some fail to reverse, but on the lower time frame, where we can also, look at the profiles on the hourly, and just overall, gonna show you right here. So let's see. So if we go down to the hourly time frame, we can see right here that when we basically open this new 6 a.m. candle, we already manipulated. And if you understand the fractal, you understand that this will be candle 2. 5 a.m. manipulates. We're forming this swing structure where we're closing back inside the range on the 5 a.m. candle, and we're doing the exact same thing on the 4-hour, where we basically just coming back inside the range here and forming a reversal candle. So this is generally speaking where you can be positioned within the 6 a.m. candle, right, and expect this to be the low of day, right? So we're basically forming a London low of day at a key level, which would be the New York PM session low, right? And what are we doing here? We're basically just coming higher. Do we have SMT on this low? Let me extra check. I don't think we do. No, we didn't actually form a SMT here. But yeah, we can see that we basically just expand up. Now there's no like significant order block. This is kind of like choppy here. So I didn't trade it personally. But what I did see was this right here. So I want you to focus specifically on the times here. So we're going to go to the 30-minute time frame. So we have this intraday high. So this is like a key target. So we have two targets. We have these relative equal highs, and we have this high right here. And this is the current high of week, where HO basically displays for this high, since it was basically lower in the range, right? So this is the overall target to frame towards. Now, since we are getting so sort of like, you see how we take out this high. Now, if we're going to reverse of this high, what do we want to do? We want to start actually expanding away from this, because if you just kind of like start trading above it, that is a failure to reverse, right? It's not showing a signature in price that is telling us that price wants to reverse. Now I want you to look at the times, right? So we take out this high at 7:30. Well, on CL, we haven't even, you see how we haven't even taken out this high. So RB is basically displacing above it, while CL is failing to, right? And this is where you want to actually look at face of price, right? So we form a SMT right here. Now what I call this is a fake SMT, where we basically form SMT, but since the overall general, bullish, we have a bullish general order flow, which is where we actually want to start framing higher prices here. And what are we doing after we hit this high? We're starting a new phase of price. Are we forming a reverse signature? No, we're forming a continuation signature where we retrace back inside the range. We're basically hitting this low. Now, if you look on RB, what are we doing? You see how we have a SMT right here where 7:30 hits the 7 a.m. low. So now, since RB is the overall stronger one, we can mark out a SMT right here, right? So this is where we want to see, like, okay, can we frame some sort of continuation play? And what do? We're closing above this opposing candle before we hit that high. And what are we doing? We're retracing back inside the range with SMT. So you can see right here how we take out this low. We have this SMT continuation signature. So this is generally speaking where you can either get in of like a retest of this fair value gap right here, or not retest, but like when it taps the fair value gap, and then you can get in right here because this is like a valid only point of continuation. Or as I would do to be more safe, I would get in off right here, put stop loss below this low, because now this is a protected low. What can you target? You can obviously target this high right here, right? Because this is the only relevant high. Like, it wouldn't make sense to reverse it. And what do we see? We see that we start expanding, we're coming higher, and you see how we're basically coming right to this high, and then we reverse, which is super interesting. We just reverse here, but this is just like an exception to the rule, where this doesn't usually happen. This is super rare, where you see how we're basically like just a few ticks away. So this usually doesn't happen. So it's still a valid framework. If you put your TP on this high, it's super valid. This is just super weird. Shouldn't have happened. And what we can also see is that basically when we almost hit this high, I don't know why we didn't, but basically when we're at this high, what are we doing on CL? You see how where we've created the fake SMT, it's where we come in and tag this high, where we actually reverse. So you see, this is asset synchronization, where all assets have to hit the same high before all of them can reverse, right? And that's the fake SMT stuff I talked about. So this is also the day. I wouldn't look at that much more. So the day after, right, I didn't catch this at all, but I want you to focus. This is actually where I did trade. So let's go and replay this, and I'm gonna show you how I framed actually CL, right? So let's go to the daily time frame, or let's just go to the 4 hour for now. So you see how RB right here. So we basically remember how HO right here, this is the fail to reverse, and if you look, this is the exact same high, and we can see that we hit this high. What are we doing? It's the same shit again, right? We're failing to reverse. So if you look here, we're taking out this high, right? We're failing to reverse of this high, and you see right here how we basically just continue. Now we're targeting this high. Are we failing to reverse? Yes. We're forming a continuation signature, retracement to expansion. What are we doing here? We're taking out this high, retracement to expansion, right? So it's the same signature every single time, which is super interesting. Now, what do we have as a target on CL? It's the exact same high, right? It's the exact same high, but since CL gap more at the open, this is the last target. So you see how when we fail SMT here, we're expanding higher, we're failing to reverse. RB, we're failing to reverse. Now on CL, this is the relevant target this day, because now it's like, okay, this is actually where I traded. I'm gonna show you. So what we see right here is we expand into this high and then we reverse. This is actually the true reversal, because this is the high of week. And what we can see on Friday, which I can just show you now, this is actually where we start consolidate on Friday. We're just capping the weekly range. Where we hit this key level, we expanded all week. We can form profiles to trade this almost every single day. Great profiles overall. And then we just cap the weekly range. But specifically, let's go over this price action right here. So what we can see at the open is we basically open low first. So you see how we don't hit anything relevant. So we open the day here. We basically open low first into this low. And what are we doing right at the open? We're forming a protected low. Now this is what I talked about before as well, super important stuff. This is supporting the continuation play, because if you fail to reverse, remember, if you fail to reverse of this high, what is this going to do? It's obviously going to continue, right? And now we're forming same principle here. We're forming a protected low to trade away from, which is super important, because this is, generally speaking, if we expand away and we're failing to reverse here, this is with high probability going to be Asia low of day for that, so we then can trade New York higher, right? So let's go to CL. Now this is where I look right here. So I see that I actually have executions this. So if you want to go look on my Instagram, you can. So we see that we get a failure to reverse of this high, where we open low first on the opening price. We close above this opposing candle. So now I look at this as a protected low. We expand into this high. What are we doing? We're forming a continuation yet again. Phase of price, super important, where we basically just retrace within this candle. What is the trigger for expansion? It's SMT. And what are we aligned with? If you look at the 4 hour, what can we see? We can see that the 4 hour candle, this is pretty unclear. But you see basically how the 6 a.m. candle is opening low first, and we actually have a SMT right here. Let me remove the 10 a.m. candle for now, so it's more clear to look at the 4 hour profile. So let me just do this for now. If we go to the 4 hour time frame, we can clearly see that we're forming some sort of like, you see how we have this order block on the hourly time frame. So we're forming a protected low. While on the 4 hour time frame, what are we doing? We're forming a SMT on the previous 4 hour low. So if we go to RB, no, I think it was HO actually. 6 a.m., 6 a.m., 6 a.m. This is weird because I'm gonna show you, we do have a SMT right here. I'm gonna show you. Let me check here. So if you look at the 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. low, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. right here. So you see how we have a manipulation right here. So we have a SMT on this previous. So 6 a.m. takes out 5 a.m. right here. Super weird. Why doesn't this show on the 4 hour profile? This is super weird actually. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, we can look right here where we form this SMT. So boom. So we basically take out this. So 6 a.m. open low first into this low. So now we're forming a new fractal. We have candle 1, 2, 3 expands, and we come into this high right here. Now when we come into this high, what are we doing? We're basically just consolidating. So that's the phase of price. We either get a retracement, consolidation. What do we want to happen to trigger expansion? Manipulation. So what we see right here is when we expand into this high, we consolidate, we manipulate into this 30-minute or hourly fair value gap. And then when 9 a.m. expands, right, we're forming a open low. What can 10 a.m. do? We can just expand away from that, right? As we can clearly see right here, we expand away from that. Now, I want to show you how I actually framed right here on the 30-minute time frame. So what we can see right here is we're forming a candle 1, 2. So 9 a.m. forms that low in this fair value gap. And we also have like I said, we have a hourly order block right here. So we're getting a retest. So inside, when we retest this order block, we form a new phase of price. So we have candle 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we always want to be positioned within 3 or 4 candles. We never want to start position ourselves within candle 5, because that's generally speaking, especially if we hit a key high or just a internal high where we can expect a new phase of price. So consolidation, manipulation, distribution. Now we're aligning the expansion candles where we basically form this 6 a.m. low for 10 a.m. to continue into a key high, right? So that's what we see, right? And this is super interesting. I don't know why this happened, but we can see that on the CLQ contract, we actually hit this high. Let me see right here. We actually hit this high, while on the normal contract, the continuous one, we actually didn't hit this high, which is super interesting. I don't really know which one is right, but I was looking at the CLQ contract. So yeah, anyway, we can just start, it's the same principle, right? So we see that we form this protected swing for 10 a.m. to expand. So if we mark out the 10 a.m. candle right here, we can go down to the 5 minute. And what we see right here is we form this where I actually enter, because we did have SMT on this low as well. So we have formed a SMT here, right? And then I'm going to the 3 minute and I'm actually entering right here. So you see how we basically open low into this low with SMT. We get a closure above this 3 minute opposing candle, right? And then we are making it. This is actually where I fumbled, right? I'm going to be dead honest with you guys. So basically what I did was I put out 50% of this wick right here. And we basically retested this wick, right? Or we basically came down tagged this wick where my stop loss was, and then it ran, right? So if I had my stop loss on this protected low, it would have been 4 ticks away from getting stopped. But all this is a strength switch, which means it's a 2-stage SMT, which Gary teaches, right? So we see that we first go from the weaker one, we make a 2-stage, and then RB takes out this low, right? And now it's showing us, you see how we make a lower low here? So first it goes from the stronger one, where it goes from the weaker to the stronger, and then we expand, right? But yeah, overall, I didn't want price to come all the way down back inside this range. So since I put it on the 50%, I expected myself to get stopped. I didn't re-enter here because of the simple reason that stop loss didn't make much sense, because I needed to wait for a closure. But you see how this repeats every single day, right? The framework repeats, and it does it every single day, which is why I can catch like 2 to 3 trades almost every single day on different assets, right? Now, if you guys want to, I can make a weekly recap of how I traded NQ or gold as well, but I wanted to show you specifically on RBC or on CL, HO, and RB, because of it's a lot of things within this price action that I do every single day, like the fail to reverse, all the face of price showing us, when we hit highs, we're retracing. You just gotta read those signature, so you get the idea where price is heading, right? So that's all we do. We just read price, and then we act accordingly what the price is telling us. So yeah, that's the overall analysis, right? And like I said before, we hit on CLQ, we basically hit this high. And what do we do on Friday? I'm not even gonna review Friday. What do we do Friday? We basically just come back inside the range and we just consolidate, because we already capped, we already hit this weekly objective. So that's what we can expect, right? So yeah, overall, I appreciate you guys watching, and goodbye.